Hello and welcome to part 2 of this rather large piece. We've established the composition and a lot of the base layer tones have been laid down, but it was just a preliminary grouping of colors that's been used on here. And I'm going to get more into the specifics of each different area in terms of what colors it will kind of lead to be. We'll see if we get a little bit further along with some of the other types of inks that will be used on here. Okay, so what I mean by that was we've used some peach Bellini on this piece after post impressions, okay? And then we've used a gray. It was a London Fog Memento color that was used on here. And that has given us this kind of grayish warm tone with the two of them in combination. And now we want to get more into the specifics. So I'm kind of taking a look at this and seeing if there's anything different from my kind of initial thought of what these different areas are going to look like. So, okay, so we can still take this in just about any direction we want to in terms of the color schemes that we use over the top of it, because the preliminary base coat layers are very light in value. So even if you've done something with like a warm peach Bellini here, you can still go over it with a bluish color scheme if you so choose, and it's not really going to affect it. It'll give it kind of a warmer glow than if it wasn't there, but you can put like even cool tones over the top of this, and it'll look blue to the eye, not like some kind of a warm peachish version of blue. Okay, so that being said, hello Patty and Linda. Ah, you finished your 11 by 17. That's cool. Made your adjustments. Now waiting so that I can tweak it. Sounds cool. I've been looking forward on tweaking this one too. Now, okay, so I've got my base layer colors down and it's really dry right now because I did this on Friday. So it's given it, like a day and a half to set up here. So I think it will be a good idea if I lay down a little bit of extra tones on here, not with the re-inker, because if I do that, then again, if it's really super saturated on the surface, then I won't be able to apply my other colors and have those other, colors that are built up on there, have them influence the background as much as when it's dry, because it'll be absorbent now. In other words, when you start building up some colors, you might start adding in some additional tone, but it doesn't apply because you're kind of applying wet into wet, all right? Damp into damp, or wet into damp. So now this one's a little bit, I do want to apply wet media into slightly drier, but not completely dry, of a surface here. So good idea to lay down a little bit of extra tone here. And I don't know, it looks good anyways. I'm looking at this color here, and this desert sand is going to have a little bit more intensity. It's still a very dull color, but it's just more intense in relation to a shadow stamping, super, super fade, light tone. So that little bit of extra glow there, like that, is different than like that right there. You can see how dull that color is. Okay, but dull is good sometimes, so you can kind of lay some colors into your piece, and you can establish your lighting scheme without a big commitment to either the color, which is the hue, temperature, warm and cool, and intensity, okay? So it's just like, you can do whatever you want with it practically. Establish your lighting scheme. You can see areas that are a little bit lighter and areas that are darker next to it. All right, but it's a very faint version of it. So in other words, you can bring your pieces kind of into focus at a nice kind of gradual rate. And even if you apply it and it's like, oh, I don't know if I like, that color there, it's no big deal because it's such a light version of it, that when you get done with your end result, you could have made a lot of different adjustments to it, okay? It's kind of the opposite of doing a lot of the different type of techniques that we're kind of used to in coloring something in with like a alcohol marker or something like that and really being kind of, stuck with that color. Here it's just kind of you're working through very light tones and you're eventually getting darker and darker and darker so that, your first colors that you start off with, you want to have very, very light. So if you're going to do like in other words, like a navy blue, deep midnight, blue scene, you start off with like a pale powder, blue or something like that. Until you get up, into your middle tones and then eventually your navy tones. All right, so I can see pretty well what this this warm tone is doing on here. I didn't know if I'd be able to see it too much or if it would influence it this much, but I think it is. Maybe it's just that everything's getting a little bit damper, so it looks all the colors that were already laid down are kind of getting darker as well, which happens because you're resaturating them. Okay, but this paper will be a little bit more moist now for my other tones that I'm going to lay in, which is kind of important because I'm going to be switching hue in some areas. So I'll be adding a little bit of green in the grassy area. Not too much because I want this to be, it's supposed to be fall in here, so I don't want like vibrant spring grasses or anything like that. Not that you can't do that if we don't have to abide by the rules of, the seasons or anything like that when we're doing something. These can be more kind of whatever, impressionistic, pieces that we're doing, and we can kind of go with the, the ideal colors, whatever, fall tones or something like that, in combination with spring grasses and, I don't know, wildflowers surrounding it, which would be a cool kind of visual that we normally wouldn't see out there. So stamping could be doing the things that, you would think would be really cool and ideal to see, and not necessarily the things that we would see. Okay, so pear tart. Let's go with some of that, and I have this bamboo leaves memento here. I'm thinking about what I want to use this pear tart on. A lot of times I'll bring this up into my tree trunks a little bit, just as I don't know, kind of a light tone that's creating a relationship between the trees and the grasses. I don't know if I want to do that, though. I might want to have things a little bit more separated. So right now we have like 3 colors that have been used on both the grasses and the trees already, so that might be enough to create kind of visual continuity between everything. All right, but let's give it a shot here. I'll tell you what, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same paper towel here that I used for the desert sand, and I'll just use this right in the pear tart, so it'll create a little bit of a kind of an in-between color between desert sand and pear tart as I start doing this. And that's a good way to do it too, because you create these intermediate colors that don't exist in pad form. You're creating a combination of this one and the previous one, and those are the 2 colors that we're blending together. So here it's physically blending, okay, right on your paper towel, so that when you start using it on your piece like this, it's not just straight green, it's, it's some combination of it, okay? It'll be more, I used a lot of the desert sand off of this, so this is, predominantly pear tart, but it does have some of that other tone in there, so. Just keep things as easy as possible. If you want to blend a couple things together, then it's already blended on here. And plus you're using the same thing again, so it's just like easy on multiple. It makes it easier on multiple levels to do it that way. I know some people have like different blending brushes or something like that they use for different colors. And you can do that too. A lot of people worry about kind of polluting blending brush from one color to another, but that's what's good about this. You just toss these out when you're done anyway. Okay, but see, there's just that slight tinge of green. I don't know if you can even see it in there. And then also you can kind of do your assessment. You can take a look and see that green in there, and you can see if you like it or not. It's kind of hard to tell right now, because it's not a very bright green or anything like that, but you can kind of get kind of the gist of the color scheme and what you're doing, just by looking at it like that. So you can see a little bit of green in there like that. It'll get brighter green. We'll move into darker greens, but that's kind of the initial green in there. Okay, so looking at that, I think I might want some of this on my rocks as well. Let's say some of these rocks are kind of have a little bit of moss on them or something like that. They're under the trees, so it's not going to be like, they're not going to be exposed to heavy sunlight all the time underneath that canopy. So throwing a little bit of moss on them like that, maybe. So it's a little bit of greenish tone. So they're not going to go all the way to the greens like in the grasses later, but you can use this as a preliminary color again. Okay. Hello, Cynthia, Heather, Ginger. Good to see everyone. Hope you are having a nice weekend. I was watching more weather around the country, and I don't know where everyone is in terms of I don't know, those of you who are watching but don't comment, which is fine too, but I'm just saying around the world, I don't know what it is, but we are having like rain here in Southern Cal. It's going to be 90 tomorrow, but I don't know, I took my son out to his work this morning. I got back to my car. It was already kind of overcast and real humid feeling. Then I got to my car after, and when he was done, and it's like, oh my gosh, it rained here, and then it rained on the way home. So it's been like upper 80s and 90s and really warm, but we had a little bit of rain here. I guess like a little bit of a kind of like a monsoonal flow or something like that. Real muggy though. All right, but I was watching this thing in like Gatlinburg, Tennessee. This river, flowing pretty fast today after a lot of rain there. Okay, so let's see here. Let's move into the blues now, okay? So, just a real light blue, summer sky blue, all right? And summer sky, the Memento summer sky, it is a really, really light blue. It might as well practically be like a shadow stamping ink because it is so light in value. So, okay, so what I'm getting at right here is I'm working on all these preliminary things, and I'm talking about kind of the reasons why and whatnot with the usage of them. A lot of times people will see like a final piece of mine, okay? And it'll move through all these colors, but what they'll be seeing in the end result are a lot of bright tones, darker tones, deep, dark values of colors, okay? So a lot of times they'll think that, okay, in order to get that, they'll say, okay, like up in here, there'll be a darker tone, a mid-tone blue, let's say. I don't know what color it's going to get to, but they'll go in and they'll try to figure out what color that is and use that on there. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit harder to blend in just because it's a darker tone over the top of a white piece of paper. Or a lot of times they just say, hey, I did the same colors that you used on whatever piece. And they're saying, mine just doesn't look like yours, okay? And whenever, I usually ask people to send me, like a photo of it. Just take a picture with your phone or something like that. And I would say, I don't know, 9.5 times out of 10, if I look at it, and if they have everything blended well, their darker tones are beautifully blended, but it doesn't have that vibrancy. And I can tell they just didn't use a lot of these preliminary colors down as a base layer coat. So, the more kind of layering you do, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come out more vibrant, but without that layering, though, it's not going to have quite as much vibrancy. I mean, we can keep layering and layering it. I've gotten my pieces like almost like muddy looking, where there's too many layers, And then what I'll do is I'll come back in with some darker tones or something like that, or alcohol inks or something. But usually when it comes to the vibrancy and the richness of it, it's just using, I can tell that they colored something in, or they might have even used the same colors that I use, but they didn't put as much of it down, okay? And to receive, apply like a full saturation of, desert sand or, pear tart in those lighter areas below things. Now, that's not a bad thing because all they need to do is just go back into those things and just layer it right on the top. So even if it's not underneath things and it's like, oh, that's not as vibrant as I want, they're thinking about adding more darker tones in there, but it's really not that. It's going just back in and adding more of the lighter tones in there. And like I said, if they're over the top of it too, the other colors, that will do the trick as well. Okay, but you see that little bit of glow right there? That's this Memento blue right there. You can see how light it is right there, and it's putting it right over that sky right there. It's putting it right over some of the desert sand and peach Bellini. Now, don't look at peach Bellini. Peach Bellini is not available right now, so that's the Ranger Adirondack light color, but a better color than peach Bellini anyways. I just happen to have the peach Bellini. I have a bunch of the seashell colors still, but the one that I like a lot is antique linen in terms of a base layer color. So if you ever do these types of scenes and you're adding your base layer colors down, something like a antique linen or an old paper distress ink, okay? And those you can use for just about any color scheme you want because they're nice and light. It's not real bright of a tone, but it's not too bad. It's a nice warm tone you can kind of layer in there, so you get the kind of more of that rich, tone like that. It's kind of a combination of warm and cool like that too. But you see this area right here? You get that little oscillation of light and dark. And then when you put that blue over the top of, like a beige-ish color, it almost looks like just like a warmish gray instead, right? So you can get a lot of richness, subtle richness like that, okay? And see, now I'm adding more just to get a little bit brighter. And like I said, it's not gonna be a bright tone. It's just gonna get as bright as this one can possibly be in full saturation, which isn't very bright, but it's a good one to use. And I'll use that same one down here in the water. Okay, let's see. Oh, the foamies. Yeah, Linda. I don't know if I don't know if you want foamies, but I know at one time they weren't shipping internationally. But there's this, if they're not, and if you're ever interested, just let me know. But the art foamies, there's this new method of shipping. Um, it's simple. Oh, I forgot the name of it. It's simple something. And it's kind of this, it's what this one shipping company that I use uses. I don't know if it's made more available now, but there are these rates for anything under 4 pounds, basically, internationally, okay? And what they do is it's a U.S. postal method, but I think when it gets to the destination, you see that glowing blue down there now? When it gets to the destination country, I think they just utilize whatever service is going to be the cheapest, so they'll shop the service, I think. And sometimes it goes through another hub too. Okay, now there's also things like UPS, but UPS, it will probably require a, what is that thing I'm thinking about? Brokerage fees, okay? But this other method does not include brokerage fees, and it's reasonably fast. I shipped something to Australia via this other method, and it arrived there basically in the same time frame as Priority International, but it was just so much cheaper for the individual. And again, they didn't have to worry about brokerage fees. So so it's a good way, and it's anything under 4 pounds. So I don't think the volume of it matters either. I think it's just the weight. I don't know. Maybe if something was like the size of a, I don't know. I don't know. So I gotta think that with anything within reason. It could be like a gigantic, foam ball that's 4 pounds or something like that. That's, head high or something like that. That's probably, not going to fall under that, availability. But, all right, this blue here is really working well. Do you see this really nice glow down here? Gosh, I don't know if I want to add in too much of a darker tone in there, but it looks fairly, okay, so if you just started watching this and didn't watch that first one, I put these rocks underneath it. This one I stamped a little bit too dark, okay? But see these rocks right in here? That is the boulders with lichen, which are these rocks right here. I think I used the smaller version of it in here, but these rocks right here were just stamped off, okay? And then you stamp them down in your water so that your water now looks like really clear, right? When you do these little kind of ghost impressions down here, meaning like shadow impressions, you stamp it off a couple times. So it's really dry, and then you stamp it in your water like that, okay? What you get is this clear water kind of representation than just having this all whatever, like a solid blue or something like that you can't even see down below the surface. So, it's just another way to work there to kind of create extra visual depth, utilizing value, okay? Light impressions to create distance in space. It's not really very much different than doing a tree that's darker in value and trees that are lighter in value to create distance, in whatever, above water or something like that. But you do the same thing. You can do the same thing when we're looking through different substances like water or something like that, or fog, things like that, okay? And that's what creates extra depth. And it's just a really easy technique of just using lighter impressions to create, in this case, more distant areas here, but distances above land are going to be kind of a greater space probably. Doesn't have to be, but these rocks right here might represent like 1 foot in distance or something like that, okay, or meter or something like that. Back in here, we're talking about I don't know, whatever, 20 yards or something like that to get from this darkness to that one right there. Okay, remember all these trees are going to change too. You know, when we start adding our paint pens and everything like that to it. Okay, so as I'm blabbing away, I'm not just killing time here. I do want to get a really good saturation with this blue right here. Okay. And I like to get it put down, you know, right now, as opposed to deciding later, oh, I should have used more of that, which you can do, you know what I mean? But I just assume get it all right now, so I tend to start laying these colors down, and I'll maybe even oversaturate, you know. I'll use more than probably what I need. And let's go up into these rocks as well, okay? So we'll add a little of this rocks. We're not creating blue rocks or anything like that, but again, it's just kind of creating a little bit of visual continuity between these different areas. I have water, rocks right here, and I'll use the blue up in the grass too, because a component of green is blue, right? You add your yellows to your blue, and it creates greens, so instead of just doing a bunch of unrelated greens up here, I'll put some blue up there. So it'll create continuity between all of these areas down here and the sky. A little bit of visual continuity. You're not going to be looking at this and saying, oh, I can see where you use summer sky here, 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 and here. But again, it's just kind of creating a kind of a subsurface harmony, okay, by using these things. And what does that mean in terms of our kind of our process here? It just makes it easier because you're using the same inks over a lot of different things, okay? When we start moving the darker inks, then we won't use, you know, the common inks. I'm not going to use, you know, my skin tone markers or something like that down in my water or anything like that. But you can do a lot of these, you know, these surface, you know, base layer colors using the same tones, basically, as long as they're nice and light, okay? But look at this. I mean, this is like using all light tones so far, like base layer colors, and it's done a pretty good job establishing, you know, the general color scheme of the piece. So kind of the more work you do here too, sometimes the less work you have to do with the darker tones, which, you know, can be, you know, a little bit more precarious to blend in than the lighter tones, because lighter tones you can use over everything again, okay? So you're just kind of creating less work for yourself down the road too, when you do go through this type of process right here. All right, so here's some bamboo leaves. Okay, let's see. Heather's up in Ontario. How's the weather, Heather? Those wildfires aren't across the entire country, right? In Canada. All right, this one's, okay, now we're starting to move up into a little bit of a brighter tone like this, you know, the bamboo leaves right here, it's looking like this. Again, I use just that same applicator here, but I'm going to be careful here in terms of my application, okay? Careful in terms of, when people start moving into their mid-tone colors or something like this, that's when we tend to lose kind of the lighting that's been established, because it's a darker color to begin with, okay? But you know, we've been coloring at a certain type of kind of rate, you know, in which we're laying down colors and things like that. But it's darker to begin with, so if you go over things like this in an area, and before, if we started off with a really light color like this, you know, by the time we lay down a little bit of this color, it's kind of dry on here, and then when we move into those lighter areas with it, it's already kind of dry on our, you know, really light on our applicator, so when we move into those lighter areas, it's not a big deal, because most of the color's gone. But when you start moving darker and darker like this, you have to kind of stay in your shadow areas a little bit longer to get a feel for it. Not as much color is applying down to our paper too, because, you know, the paper starts getting saturated and it's not absorbing the ink as fast. So I'm going to be careful not to lose kind of my lighter areas like in here, there's not very much of it. Okay, so I'll leave this a little bit lighter, like right around here and here. More so when I move into this like water area. But just kind of, just adjust your rate of application, in other words. Okay, and do that like right around when you start moving into a little bit of a darker tone in each zone. If you're using different zones of colors. Oh my gosh, Ginger, that is hot there. But you're in central Washington. Someone was, Jeannie was on, and she's more around the Seattle area, but she was saying it was like 90 something there, I think, too. What is it? Friday, I think it was. Okay, now I'm hitting some of these rocks in here a little bit with some of this green tinge, but I'm kind of doing like this mark like this. Okay, so it's like a pale version of this, but you can see where it's a little bit brighter. I don't know if you can tell where I did it right here and maybe a little bit right there. Okay, I don't want to do it too much when you start moving into those brighter greens, because then you're going to have green rocks, okay, or something like that. But I want to have those more kind of predominantly, I don't know, like grayish, warm grays or something like that. Okay, but let's see here. Let's use a little bit up in these trees. These trees are going to get buried in a lot of alcohol ink colors, okay? But let's put a little bit of this tone up into them. I think that'll look good. All right. Okay, that is it with that. These gigantic scenes. I'm trying to clear my area here a little bit while I work. Inevitably, there's going to be a big, gigantic pile of everything here, but okay. Let's see. Let's go with this blue here. Okay. Bahama blue. As I said, I was looking at this one. This one's a little bit darker than what I'd want. It'd be nice if I had something a little bit in between the summer sky and this one. Although it's not quite as bright as that, when I end up using Bahama blue. But if I had a little bit of a different tone in between the two of those, that would be good. I have a Marvy. Where's my Salvia blue? Oh my gosh. Let me go ahead and grab that Salvia. Here. I have all my pads, all my different types of pads stacked up like this. And it's often the case, maybe I'll grab this gray while I'm at it, but while I'm doing these live videos, it's like the color that I'm always looking for, it's like at the bottom of this pile. Okay, but let's see here. Yeah, see, that's kind of a bright blue right there. Let's go with the Salvia. That Salvia is not a bright tone, but it's just a little bit darker and muted a value as the summer sky. So I'm kind of working light to dark, okay? And that's what I used to have people do too in my workshops. They would just line up their pads or whatever with whatever color scheme they're working with. They can mix and match brands and things like that too, but whatever color scheme, value scheme, or whatever colors you're working with, and we're working through a value scheme, then just line them up and make it visual so you can see which ones are lighter and which ones are darker and work accordingly. Let's see. Uh-oh, Patty's in Florida and it is burning hot. I guess it's hot everywhere, huh? Except for Southern California, like I said. It was really kind of nicer today. Although now that I'm sitting underneath my lamps here, it's getting kind of hot. I should bring my fan over, actually. With these studio lamps in here, even though they're fluorescent, there are like, I don't know, like 10 bulbs or something like that. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that right there. See that? Yeah, I guess you can see it on camera here. I'm not sure if it's reading well or not, but that is the salvia blue, okay? And now as I add the salvia blue seems like it's kind of bearing the base layer, Peach Bellini and Sandal and London Fog a little bit more here. See, it's becoming more of a predominantly, you know, blue area now with this color. Okay, so that's what I mean by like base layer colors. You know, they end up getting buried like that. But see this color right in here? See this right in here? I mean, here, I'll just use the salvia blue right here, just as an example. So underneath here, there's like 3 or 4 other colors, but just see this, that's just straight salvia blue. And see how deep and rich this looks in terms of kind of subtle color changes that are happening there, temperature changes too. But you can get kind of richer tones like that. You know, and it doesn't take, you know, there's not like some kind of set combination, you know, and sometimes you're not going to take the time to build like a huge amount of color changes, you know, when doing this. You know, if I'm doing like a, you know, standard card size 4x6, I'm not using all these colors like this. I'm getting, you know, I'm going to be much farther along, you know, at this point in the process. And I'm not really taking that time. I'm doing this on this larger piece here, you know. I don't do 11x17s very often, but, you know, if I do this and it's just kind of a larger piece like this, it's large enough for people to see kind of the differences in here. See, I mean, this is, you know, we're working on a piece of flat paper like that, but just those color changes like that, you know, taking the time and doing that. And again, it's really easy to do because you can just, you know, you can put this anywhere you want like that too. It's just, you know, it's just building really nice and gradually, but it's just spending that time like that, and you get that deep, rich color glow in here. Look at this little color glow right in here that's starting to develop, and it gets more kind of, even more so the more you know, potentially add down there like that. You get those deep, rich color glows and, I don't know, kind of deeper looking areas like that. I mean, it's deep in terms of water like this, but hopefully it'll, you know, the same thing will happen on the trees when I get to those. Okay, so see, this is right along those rocks right here, and I'm getting deeper with this color right here. Okay, so if you don't have like all these different colors like this, sometimes you'll have like different versions of colors. So let's say I had summer sky, but I don't have something like a salvia blue here, or like a powdery kind of blue, I don't know, whatever, sky blue or something like that. And if you use something like alcohol markers or something of that sort, okay, you can just substitute. You can come in, and I'm going to be using alcohol markers on here anyway, okay? So, but see, something like this, you know, like this one right here, I don't know what color that is. It's not a Copic, but yeah, you can come in with your marker and come over it like that too, okay? So it's like the same value. See that value right there? See, there's the salvia blue, right? And here's this one right here, whatever color it is. So you can kind of approximate and come in here. I'm not going to do too much of it, but see this right here? I'm laying this down in full force. It's not like you could see like a big change or anything like that, because it's, you know, it's roughly, I'm adding the same color over there, so you can do that too. Now, I'm not adding this alcohol marker at this point in time because it's easier to, you know, it's kind of hard to add dye-based inks over alcohol markers. So if you're ready to go to alcohol markers or something like that, then switch to that, but then probably stay with that from that point in the time in your color builds, okay? And you'll get that, and alcohol markers they're transparent colors too. You know, dyes and alcohols are transparent. So you'll get a nice, deep, rich, um, area of glowing color. And then if you retain some areas of light like that, you'll have glowing light as well, okay? Okay, let's see. We can add this up into our grass too. I like to get my kind of shadow areas real kind of deep applications of whatever color is going to be in that color scheme. Not all water I do is always blue or something like that. If I'm doing a, I don't know, a different nighttime water or something like that, it might be black or something of that sort. A sunset scene where the water is reflecting the colors of the sky. It might not be blue. It might be a different, color scheme, kind of more around the sky colors, whatever the sky is kind of, the water's reflecting coming from the sky. Who was it? Someone was on the live stream the other day, and I think they said, who said, I don't know, someone's in here. Someone said their sky was purple. Maybe it was Laura. I don't know. Was that in Arizona? She said she hadn't seen that, at least that version of like color before. I think it was. All right, so that is okay. I almost forgot about it. Okay, so that was the salvia blue. I've used a lot of salvia blue in my time, being that it's one of the lighter of the blue tones in the Marvy range of pads. It's not my favorite Marvy blue. The best my favorite color of blue dye-based ink is by Uchida, but it's only in pen form, and I think it's this one right here. Yeah, number 36 manganese blue. This to me is the most awesome color of blue. I don't know if this one's manganese anymore. It's written on here 104, so I might have re-inked it with because this got dry on me, and they don't have re-inkers for their pens. Okay, I can buy a new pen, but I don't know. I had a bunch of these, and you can see it's hardly been used, but yeah, this one has been re-inked with a 104 Caribbean blue. But the manganese is that pen. I mean, I could roll some of that color on here, and I probably should get another pen of it, but it's a super bright crystalline blue. It's the most beautiful blue I've ever seen in crafters inks before. I don't know what it would be the equivalent. I'm sure there's some kind of equivalent in like Copic markers or something like that. I don't think it'd be called manganese, but it would be something else like that. And the reason why I think it's probably in the marker range is because there's, I don't know, like in rubber stamp pads or markers, dye-based markers, there's probably, I don't know, markers, there's quite a few different colors, but in pad form there's not that many. But in like a Copic range of tones, they're going to have like every color imaginable, so there's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's 30 different blues, if not more. But that one would have been good here. I haven't used that in a long time though, but that would have been really great here in this little pond area down below like that. Super bright. I guess it's the brightness of it. It's really, really, really nice. I don't think it's a I think it's temperatureless too. I don't think it's like a warm blue or anything like that. It's just super crystalline blue. Okay, so there's that blue up there. That sky is kind of coming along up there. I don't know if I'll do too much more to it up there. I don't think I want to go too much darker up there. I might just leave it as is, you know, to contrast against these trees. Hello, Cecile. Good to see you. Send those monsoons. Yeah. I think I need more monsoons here too. And we don't get very much of that. I was mentioning, I think, in the live stream that sometimes, you know, like in the deserts out here, up in the higher elevations in the mountains, we get kind of those rains. And I can see them from my place. It's like I could see a big, huge, like, cumulus cloud over the, you know, tops of the mountain ranges in the distance. Okay, so... I'm trying to decide what I want to go with here and how bright I want to take things. All right, so this is where a little bit more assessment needed. Once you get past those kind of preliminary, really light tones that you can kind of add to everything, now it's like, okay, let's go into the specifics here. The one thing about kind of warmer weather, though, or maybe not warmer, but just drier in general. When I was out in doing demonstrations in Arizona, and it was really, really arid, and it was the convention center too. They were blasting the air conditioning, and it just never stopped during the day. Everyone was kind of complaining about it, running out to their cars and getting their jackets. But I did like how my inks were drying faster. Now, I don't want them drying like super fast during my like super base layer coats, you know, because I keep having to add more and more. Okay, this is a pale green here, but it's quite a bit brighter of a green. Okay, brighter is the, you know, term of intensity, not value, where it's lighter and darker. Okay, brighter is, you know, intense and dull. But this, so I'm doing like this type of mark right now. Just very light applications of it, okay? Just so I don't slather down too much where I don't want it to be. And also I want to retain my lighter areas in here, okay? So we have a depiction of lighting coming through here. I was not sure if I'm going to do some light beams streaming through here. A lot of times I'll add those for drama. Sometimes it just looks better with them. Or if I just think it needs kind of an extra kind of element of, I don't know, whatever, like drama, like I was saying. But on this one here, I don't know if I'm going to need that. I might want things a little bit more tranquil. I could do some like really light beams, you know, coming through here too. Okay, but see, that was the that's the green. I think that's all I'm going to need for this one. If I think I need more later, I can do that. But I added it right in here, like at the base of these trunks here in the shadow areas. Okay, so see, when you spend, you know, a lot more time too with those lighter tones like that, when you get into these some of the darker tones, it's just a little bit of kind of touch. You know, not touch-up work, but, you know, it's kind of real, I don't know, sparse kind of usage, I guess. All right. And also, see, this is where, if I just went with all greens up here, it wouldn't look quite as integrated as it is now. It's starting to look kind of separate. You know, but yeah, let's see. Let's add a little bit of a tinge of it down on these rocks too. I'm doing it with a really dry applicator here. Okay. All right. I think that is it with pale green. The postage was really good and fast. Good, good. Hot and humid. They are in the north of Ontario and out west in BC. Oh, okay, got it. Heather was mentioning the wildfires. I hope some of those are going out, you know. I don't know, is there any kind of like, you know, changes of weather up there? I don't think you get like, people don't get like monsoonal showers during the summertime, you know, up in Canada, right? All right, so let's see. Maybe it is time now for that Bahama Blue. Let's see how it goes. I might not even need it. Okay, let's see. I think I was using this one right here. I was mentioning to people in the Friday stream, this is like, it's like your finger painting, like, you know, that's like the size of like your, you know, your fingertip like there, you know, when you do this. So I mentioned it's like going back to finger painting, but in reality, it's like, so I say that as if, you know, I've been mentioning, you know, finger painting, you know, in terms of using something like paper towels to do things with, as if it's like it should be kind of like a real, you know, core type of experience. You know, you do finger painting, but it's not like, when I say it's like finger painting, and people are probably thinking, okay, well, it's like finger painting, so it's going back to basics. But we don't do finger painting, Kevin. So it's not like that makes it any easier. We haven't finger painted, you know, for, you know, since we were in kindergarten or whatever, like, you know, first grade. So I guess it's maybe not like you know, it's like a practice thing, like, you know, it should be easier, but it's certainly kind of a little bit more primal. So you had to dip into, you know, very primal types of kind of I don't know, whatever, you know, a spirit in terms of media application here. Okay, so this Bahama Blue now, as I'm going into some of the areas, the other colors didn't really turn it too much, you know, the lighter values of my blues, but this one is definitely turning, you know, whatever, peach Bellini, memento sandal, you know, London fog. It's definitely turning to just straight blue, okay? But again, it's like another version of blue because this isn't, that's what, you know, this, let's add a lot of it here. Okay. Okay, so there's that Bahama Blue, but I don't know, can you see, it's a rich, deep, rich version of blue because there's a little bit of different values in here. And again, this is just straight Bahama Blue right here, okay? But you see this right here where it's nice and rich and deep and kind of transitioning. Now I'm not sure how much to use over here because I'm going to use my paint pens to go over these branches and, you know, to have that fall foliage on them and to make them look real three-dimensional if I can. There's the blues over there. This area right here is a little bit of a problem because I can't really, unless I mask this off or something like that, I can't get into that area too much. So here, I'll just squeeze this out and I'll make it real narrow and I'll just come right above those rocks, like right in here. So I get a little bit of this blue like that. Okay, so this is the glow based on values, okay? We have this area right in here that's light, right? and then there's a little bit of a darker tones right out here, and then where I'm hitting this, which is kind of a medium tone blue, the medium tone blue is out here. So the darker I get, the less kind of inward I go with it, so we get this transitioning range out here. The mistake that people can make if they're going for this type of look, okay, it's usually when they come up with like this tone of blue right here, and they'll just take it and they'll go all the way to say right here with it. So there's just like this solid area of like this blue, and it just stops right here. But instead, see, this area is kind of out here a little bit more, like that. And then, okay, now if you do come in here, say I'm coming into it with like that version of blue as opposed to this version of it, and you bring this color in like this, but you're bringing in a much lighter version, therefore you get this still this transitioning area of glow. And that's what I'm kind of doing up here in the meadow too. And you know, to an extent here, it's very subtle. It's in the sky, so it's a little bit darker up there, and it transitions in here, and it gets lighter and lighter, okay, like that. Now, I mean, for the sky, I mean, maybe there's going to be some difference if I have like a streak of a darker tone in there or something like that, or, you know, that's going on in the water. But for the most part, you get this kind of transitioning area by just simply applying your darker tones in a more perimeter-oriented fashion or application. The darker you go. So I'll eventually get to black, and black will probably be like right up in here, and it won't go down into this area like that. So again, that's the benefits of doing a lot of things with your lighter tones too. You know, your lighter tones kind of overlapping one another, kind of mix and blend to a little bit of a darker tone, so that when you get into your darker tones, see how dark this is getting? And this is like a medium blue right now. So a lot of this is taken care of, you know, a lot of those kind of deeper shadow types of whatever considerations, you know, just way ahead of time here before you even get to black or darker blue or something like that. All right, there we go, like that. That doesn't look too bad. Let's give it a little bit of try up here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to wipe some of it off first, and then I'll add it up here like that. And I think, you know, say there's that little tone like that for that extra trend, you know, extra little value of blue up there. All right, so like that. I'll probably add a little bit of gray now that I look at that, just because all this black is up here, so I'll put a little bit of like a blacker, you know, grayish tone up there. But I'm looking for like glows in each area, so I want a color glow, or lights and darks in this range in the background in the sky. There's lights and darks in this meadow area. There's lights and darks in the rocks, and lights and darks in the water, and to an extent this little bit of foreground down here too. So if you retain kind of some lights and darks in each of your zones like that, that's your lighting right there. Coloring would be just filling in everything kind of uniformly, but when you want to add color and lighting, it just means you do a little bit less coloring in each area, okay? And that will represent lighting. Anything that you've retained, you know, lighter or the white of the paper, that's lighting right there. So lighting is doing less coloring, you know, it's not doing anything more. It's just kind of putting the brakes on in terms of your applications of coloring everything, you know, completely away from usually white is usually what we're starting off with. Candy's packing for camping with Stampscapes, of course. Awesome. What type of area are you going to, Candy? Like a wooded area or something like that, or are there any water features around where you're going? Oh, Cecile's going too. Give us the addresses for where you're both going, and where we might show up there. Hello, Annie. Heather, this is a semi-gloss cardstock, so kind of more, a little bit more of a satiny finish on this. This one's a paper called Appleton Papers. It used to be out of Appleton, Wisconsin, I guess. I remember I didn't talk with someone on the phone, but it must have been on Facebook or something like that. Someone lived in Appleton or near that, and they used to have a like a factory store there where they would go in and buy whatever papers they were. I don't know what. I don't know if like Appleton made like a glossy cardstock. They might have, but yeah, I remember talking with someone about that. But these days, just any kind of semi-glossy cardstock. And I was mentioning before on, some or one of the live streams or something like that. It seems like semi-gloss cardstocks are easier to find. All right, this is a very, very bright blue here. It's called light blue from Marvy. You can see how much brighter it is. See that right there? Here's the Bahama blue. The Bahama blue looks like it's just as bright, but it really isn't. See that Marvy right there? And there's the Bahama, but they look like they would be roughly the same color, right? But Marvy colors are just a lot brighter, just in general. You don't have to have a ton of Marvy colors either, And I point that out because, first of all, they don't have their pads anymore. But should you ever want to add in like a Marvy tone into your color schemes, all you have to do is get the re-inker for them. They're running out of the re-inkers too, but like that salvia blue, here's blue right here, you can get a re-inker and you put a couple drops on it, whatever your applicator is, and just incorporate that brighter tone in with any other brand of inks that may or may not be, kind of duller in terms of intensity. I don't want all my colors to be super bright, okay, but I want my brighter areas, if I want kind of more earthy and weathered types of, colors in a scene, which I usually do. I want that, but oftentimes I want like my shadow areas or something like that. Like right here, okay. I want like really bright kind of shadow areas, okay. In terms of intensity, I can do that with a brighter tone like that. And all you have to do is add in, because again, dye-based inks are transparent. You can add in one color that's brighter than, I don't know, even if you use 10 colors of ink in here, okay, but you wanted a brighter green or something like that, all you have to do is add in one brighter tone right over the top of them, and it would brighten up all of them, okay? Now, you might not want that over the entire range, but if you want certain areas to be a little bit brighter, you just add that in there, okay? So on something like this, it would be like the Marvy 10 blue, and it's one of the brighter blues. It's kind of brighter than that manganese blue. But I like the manganese because it was lighter, too. It's a super bright light blue. This one's kind of a medium tone blue, okay? So the manganese I can use over everything. I'd use it up in the sky, but sometimes I don't want things to get, that dark right there. Okay, so that's where the manganese came in. It was, I don't know, if that's like a, I don't know, like a 35% blue, the manganese is probably like a 15 or 20% blue. All right, so let's add some of this in our shadow areas too, and that'll brighten up some of our grasses. See, this blue right here, having a real bright blue, will brighten up, if you need to, your greens, because blue is a component of that. Or if you have some violet tones and you just want to have some brighter violets, then you can add this blue into your violet tones, because blue plus pink is going to form violet too. So it's one of those like primary colors. All right, but you can see where that green is a little bit brighter there. It's not warmer. I'm going to add in some warmer tones in there as well. But it got a little bit brighter with this blue right here. You can see it right in here. And I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with those rocks yet. Oh, Candy's next to a river. That would be so awesome. Now, I thought you were gone, Jeannie. Are you on your... Will be in... Okay, from our crew, will be in Alaska. I didn't think Jeannie would be on. She's on a cruise. So that, you know, so it'd be even better, Jeannie, if you took your Stampscape stamps and just stayed in your room and stamped on that cruise. All right. There used to be a couple ports of call in Alaska, and there were two, I don't know, maybe usually it was one store at a time in Alaska. You know, there's not going to be a lot of stamp stores in Alaska. And I'm talking about dedicated stamp stores. I'm sure there were a lot more scrapbooking stores, but there was some, I forget the North Star, I don't know, I can't remember. But there were, yeah, there's been some stamping, you know, going on in Alaska, which is really cool. I think I've mentioned in the past there was a convention in Alaska as well, a stamp convention, surprisingly so. And a lot of companies went to it, and I know why they did too. It's because they wanted to have, you know, to go on a business trip and write it off, which is kind of totally cool, you know. But not the stamping population up there to really kind of support a yearly, you know, stamp show. It kind of dependent, you know, on a lot of people probably coming from out of state, you know, to go to the show. All right, so this is a very bright green, all right? And this is your light green. I don't want too much of it. It's going to make it too extreme. So I'm kind of brightening things up with the idea that I'm going to mute it out using colored pencils, okay? So, hello on your cruise ship, Jeannie. Wow. Okay, so this is probably the first time in history anyone's like logged into a live stream from a cruise ship. So you're telling us that you're kicking back in this recliner chair, and you're drinking a margarita, looking out at the sunset right now, right? And if you aren't, say that you are anyway, so that we can all kind of daydream here. All right, let's see. Okay, so see that brighter green in there? I'm tempted to put it in here, but I'm not going to put it on the rocks here. If I add in kind of this tone of green, I'll do it with a like a colored pencil, so I can give some kind of muted version of it in here. I don't think I've used colored pencils on such a big scene before, but I don't remember. So things are looking a little bit extreme here, okay? But again, this is kind of like a you know, and that's not a preliminary, but it's like a mid-tone kind of value layer that's going on here. We have colored pencils, more dye-based inks, and alcohol inks to come, okay? So you don't want to kind of look at this thing like this, which is kind of, we're prone to do, including myself, saying, okay, there's a little bit of too much of whatever there. I don't really say that anymore, I guess, but because I know what I can do with other media over the top of it. But like these greens in here aren't going to be quite so kind of extreme. I'm going to be coming into it with like black in there. I'm wondering if I should do it right now too, because I'm going to try a lot of different media on here. And I don't want to add a layer of something down on here that I can't go over the top of. Okay, so I can come over the top of alcohol inks a little bit with colored pencil, but by the time the colored pencils go down, that waxy kind of surface, it's really kind of hard to color over the top of those. So yeah, maybe we'll kind of oscillate. We'll kind of experiment around with some different things in here, because I'm not sure what the media compatibility will be. Maybe it might have something to do in terms of degrees, like how much alcohol ink do I lay down on there determines how much I can go over with the colored pencils. I don't know, because something will start getting more and more sealed off. Okay, so let's just start giving it a try here. Okay, so I added in some of this blue before I was telling you about. So I'm going to come into these areas in here a little bit more, into these shadow areas with my blue. Okay. This big old, kind of wad of paper towel isn't like perfect for getting into like specific little nooks here, like right around the base of these rocks. So let's do it with a pen, which is much more of a targeted, precision tool. And it's adding down yet another layer of color. Okay, so like right around here, I can just come right around in this. You really can't see too much. I mean, it's very subtle. Okay. But again, I don't want like a big jump in, a change here. I'm going to add some of this down to my rocks too, like in the shadow areas of the rocks. I'll show you what I'm doing here. So, like these darker areas of my rocks, I'm going in and just reiterating it with the pen. See, here's light and then darker in here. And in the impressions, that's where I'm you're reiterating your shadows, which is with some subtle shadow, tones in here. I'm doing it with a very light tone. I can come into it more with a darker tone, as well. But I just kind of do it through these lighter tones first. Finger painting, paper towels, general areas of, your lights and darks, okay? This is like specific areas of lights and darks within kind of the objects. This is good for areas. This is good for objects within the objects. Stoner, Colorado. Where is that, Cecile? What region of Colorado is that? Is that southern or western Colorado? I'm familiar with some regions of Colorado. The one place I've never been to is like Grand Junction. But I've been to like Durango and Pagosa Springs down south, and then oh, this one's really light here. This one's not even going to do anything. Yeah, I'll maybe come into my lighter areas a little bit. I've used these alcohol inks on glossy. I've used them on matte too. I think I'm going to be able to do whatever I want to with the colored pencils over the top of this, using this more satiny, matte-ish paper right here, because I don't think this is changing the texture at all by adding this in. It's just absorbing too much for it to really build up too much for me to not be able to use the pencils, but we'll see. I don't know. Jeannie is out to sea. Does anyone ever get seasick on cruise ships? Or are they just too stable? I've never been on one. I've always wished that I could have went out on one of those stamping cruises, but I just, and they like a couple of them that I had been invited to. I just couldn't be gone for like a week and a half or whatever it was. Because I would have had to fly to like Seattle and spend the night overnight there, and then you're out on the cruise, and then when you get back in, I'd have to get a flight back to back home, but I just couldn't be gone that long. It's like, like 25, 30 years ago. I think I'd been asked a couple times, but one of the coordinators was a client of mine in Stamp-A-Doodle out of Bellingham, Washington. A long time customer and stamp store up there, established, long established stamp store in that area. All right, so that was that. Those were the blue tones. Let's start hitting. Dare I go with that color right there in that grass? I don't want things like so like vibrant green up there. I want this one to be a little bit more subdued, you know? Maybe it already is a little bit too green up there. Okay, let's not do that. Let's go with let's hit it with the brownish tones like this. Okay, here's a little bit of like a olive green, okay? And then let's start moving. Let's try to move like some of these greens up here more into like a muted green, and we'll move it through these kind of these like tan colors or something like that. And that'll kind of relate to the tree trunks as well. In fact, I might be able to use some of these other tones like these. Maybe I'll use those ones here. Let's start doing some of that. This looks white right here. That says warm gray. Now, let me see. Okay, that's a little bit too dark right now. Actually, that is a good color right there. Warm gray. It's like super pale, okay? I used this over the top of like wet trees on my last video, so it has a little black, but it's almost like that. It's almost like I would give it, if I was to say the equivalent, it would probably be like that. I think it's like the old paper, maybe from the distress inks. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see where it's kind of being laid down. It's like super moist. Okay, so I'm thinking about this as the base layer again. It's just using a different, medium. So, see, I want this tone to show up over here, okay, but I want it to, I'm using it as kind of a base layer over this whole thing just to make that area, those grays in there, much richer, but I'm also going to be hitting these trees here with, some darker colors. So I want a base layer of this to go down there so that I can blend in those darker, medium and darker tones easier, okay? So again, you'd hit the whole thing with it, okay? And again, it's great to have really a good choice of some lighter tones in whatever media you're working with, dye-based inks or, colored pencils, whatever, pastels. You see what it did to that tree there? It kind of reinvigorated. I mean, when this dries, it might kind of, go back to dull here, but on this satiny, absorbent paper like this, it kind of reinvigorates the the hue a little bit. Yeah, when it's drying, it's kind of going back to a little bit dull. But, you know, again, it's an extra kind of layer of tone in here. Gosh, I could feel this paper. When I pick this up like this, having added this on here now over a lot of it, I can feel the weight of this is different, you know, and it feels different too. It feels like a piece of cloth or something like that, cloth, paper or something. I'm almost wondering if I just go with alcohol pens, if this would be faster, you know, toning everything out. I don't think I'd have the control here though, like in this area with markers, you know, to get that like transition in here. But maybe for other things like these harder objects, you know, just coloring in like this, because this is like almost like instantaneous with, especially with this chisel tip right here. I don't know, I'll have to try it sometime. All right, let's see. Did you cut down? I didn't do it for matting, Linda. I'm finding that with those frames I got, I'm just framing right to the edge. And those 11 by 17s have this built-in mat where you can use the mat or not. Or, you know, the mat. So on this one here, I didn't cut down. I might not be cutting down on them. Well, maybe the 8.5 by 11s, maybe I'll do that. But yeah, this one I'm just going full 11 by 17. Jeannie misses her Stampscapes. You should have taken like a Stampscapes, like an unmounted Stampscapes, and just like put it on your chain, you know, your necklace, Jeannie. So at least you'll have, you know, that with you at all times there. On the formal dinner night too, it looked really great, you know. Let's see. Okay, let's see here. Okay, start 30. Okay, 30 minutes from divide. Okay, I didn't read down, Cecile. Uh, Wearing a mask on a crowded elevator. Oh, Jeannie sent some photos. Cool. Lounge chair, but rather nice. But rather have ice cream over drinks. That sounds good. Southwestern San Juans. Ah, that would be nice. So, okay, so what's the temperature out up there then, Cecile? I mean, that's got to be like a lot cooler then, right? Is that like an 80s there or something like that, or 70s? Okay, you took the seasick meds, yeah. I was wondering about that. Okay, let's go with the darker tone. Okay, so this is this color right here. So, okay, so here's the first color right here. Boy, that's practically invisible. It's like just like warm, like blending color or something like that. This one's taken quite a decent jump in value, but let's see, let's add this added in here like this, okay? And I'm adding it into my darker areas of my trees, okay? So again, just like in areas like this where I don't want to kind of, you know, eradicate my lighting on here, I'm keeping this in the darker areas like this, okay? I'm gonna come in with the lighter tone again, and I'll blend this color over this way, okay? So it's not just some straight version of this, okay? Do they have your favorite ice cream flavor genie, whatever that is. Sitting around thinking of ice cream and, stamping like the scene out here, it reminds me of these ice cream socials at these, or I don't know, maybe at one of the, stamp conventions. It was like a Friday night, like preview night that they have at some of these conventions. And sometimes they'd have like ice cream out. So the ice cream social in Las Vegas before the convention was it was a Friday night ice cream social. So there were different booths, and it would be the manufacturers that are going to be at the show, but they'd be doing demonstrations at this ice cream social, and it was like a self-serve, like ice cream bar or whatever Sunday, with a bunch of ice cream and toppings and stuff like that you can add in, and it was like in one of the hotel whatever, like banquet rooms, and that was pretty cool. All right, so there's that color. Okay, so I've added that down, that previous color into the greens, and we're going to do that here too. Okay, now at this point in time, I am thinking that I might be sealing this off a lot from, potentially being able to use colored pencils, because 2 layers of this alcohol ink it's giving me that kind of the alcohol kind of consistency, build up on there. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And you can see how much darker the trees are getting though too, just with one extra color, and that's not a very dark color right there. But over the top of these other colors, it's different. But look at how much those aspen trees are starting to stand out against the background, having this darker. Look how shiny this is getting too with the alcohol inks. Are you going to any of the? Do you have to sign up for those like stage shows and things like that on cruise ships, or is it just kind of like festival seating, first come first serve? You probably have to reserve, right? Okay, let's leave these colors out here that I've used. Let's see, warm white. So these these skin tone colors, come in handy for like these tree trunks here, I think, because these tones like this, they're meant to be blended together, right? I'm not going to use the pinks, but these other colors are just kind of, they put them together naturally to create kind of a color blending harmony, right? We generally want people's skin tones to be nice and kind of, blended and vibrant, so in theory, that was my theory in terms of being able to use them. Okay, now this one's a little bit warm, too warm like that. It's a little bit yellowish, but again, I'm going to use that as a kind of a base layer. And I want these trees to be, the same as this water down here. I want them to be nice and deep and rich in terms of the color and texturing of them. Okay, now these trees, if you weren't on the live stream on Friday, what I'm doing is I'm having them left side illuminated, okay, to kind of, depict, lighting direction in here. So here's a tree right here, and here's a tree in the background, okay, so I'm leaving this edge of this one, this front one. I'm not going to leave it white like that. It's just going to be light. I'll hit it with, the colored pencils are all come in with the blender and just blend that in. Yeah, we don't want, once you get seasick too, gosh, it's like that medicine's just the meds just don't seem to be as effective post, post sickness, or right in the middle of being sick. I've only been seasick. I've only had motion sickness once. Going out fishing with my dad on a, I don't know what it was, like a 30-foot boat. I don't know if that was the worst feeling I've ever felt. But man, that was tough. I did catch a big lingcod, though, that day when I started feeling better. It was the catch of the day for the boat, too. All right, this one's a little bit of a lighter tone. It's kind of putting some of this other tone kind of back into solution. Going over the tops of these aspens with this alcohol ink, maybe that's a good thing too, because it kind of seals the paper a little bit. So when I start using my acrylic paint pens over the top of it, it might be a little bit more sealed, where the acrylic is staying more surface oriented and not absorbing into the paper as much. So I might, be able to use less applications of acrylic over the top of that. So we'll see. Okay, so those little kind of textural alcohol elements, can you see it right there? And there where you know what I mean? It kind of gets that little buildup in there. For most people, they probably don't like that type of alcohol texturing like that, where you get these, I don't know where I can show it. I can't show it to you on this mat here because it's not going to show up. But on bark, though, I really like that. I like it overall, just on everything, that texturing. But I know some people with certain types of alcohol coloring, they don't want that. See, it's like, see that right there, that ridge right there in between a couple different colors of that. So for me, and this bark here, this textural, whatever transitioning of that, the different colors of alcohol it lends themselves very nicely to, whatever tree bark texture. Okay. Okay, so. Okay, I've hardly ever found a really good use for that chisel side of my markers whenever I've had markers in the past. I haven't used it, but that sure is coming in handy there, because that was like really quick work on those, that's a lot of area right there that I just covered. I don't know, it was like four pens here with that chisel. I don't know if I'm done, but that took care of those trees pretty fast. I mean, they're kind of, I don't have to do too much more to them, I don't think. Maybe tweak a couple little areas like that. Okay. All right. You can see the different textures of those alcohol inks on there. Look how shiny the trees are. And then down here, I used a little bit of that alcohol ink down here. You can see where I've used the alcohol ink. Just, I don't know, it's almost like it looks like glossy cardstock now, practically. All right. Okay, now there are some colors that I don't have in that skin tone set, and let's start using some of these on these grassy areas in there. Mint chip. I love mint chip. That was my favorite as a kid for a while. I don't think we used to get mint chip, but we used to go to we'd get certain flavors at home all the time, but then we would go like to Thrifties, with that whatever it was, 10 cents a scoop or something like that. And my thing was always rainbow sherbet. It might have been because of the colors, I don't know, but I don't know. At some point in time, I tried the mint chip and I thought, what the heck, When does where has this been all my life? And I think I started getting the mint chip, after that. Okay, this is a bit of bright green. This is like a warm olive green. Okay, I'm just gonna hit it around in some. I should. I'd work vertical like this, but it's hard for me. Getting some of these marks like this is kind of in like an awkward motion like this for me. So I can get here easier. So, but it's not great for viewing probably for you guys. Okay, so I'm just putting this in here. I'm creating some shadows at the base of some rocks, and here's some more around these trees. It's not going on like in a smooth blended application, but that's what we have our kind of blending tools for, right? So here's a bit of this brown, yeah, brownish gray. I guess that is the color that I always use. I'm just always kind of blending out with that, so I don't really look at it and see what color it actually is because I'm usually using it over colors, like in these shadows right here. So I'm just kind of blending that out like so. Now I'm thinking about cruising and San Juans and camping and what is that, Stoner, Colorado. I'm thinking out the outdoors. So whether they are traveling to those areas, I will stamp out something in the spirit of the outdoors here. That's what I always say. Some people say, "Hey, do you draw or do you stamp the places that you've been to, or whatever?" And I mean, sometimes that's the case, like that Acadia one. But more often than not, it's like, I'm just kind of stamping out some kind of area that I think would be really cool to be at or whatever. Or, in the process of creating this scene right here, there's something evocative or transportive, I guess, when you're doing scenes like this. You kind of go into them, those locations a little bit, while you're doing them, I think, in terms of kind of, subconsciously at least. All right, here's that brownish gray up on my trees. So here's my grassy area down below. I almost can't see my little aspen saplings coming up in there, but a lot of that will be done with the paint pens. We'll be in the 70s and 80s. Got it. Yeah, Cecile. That's what I figured. I figured you're probably going to be losing like 10 degrees out there, right? You'll get more of a breeze probably. Super huge buffet for lunch and dinner. That sounds pretty good. When everyone goes, here's a question for everyone or whoever answers. When you go to buffets, do you try out? Do you try out new things, or do you stay, you know? with the favorites? Or do you do a little bit of both? A little bit of experimentation, but a lot of favorites? All right, going into my rocks again and making them a little bit more dimensional. See this, like you stay kind of at the base of this, but leave that light up here. It's just like in a big area right here. This is like an area lighting. This is like object lighting, okay? See this on each one of these rocks right here, at least the larger areas of them. I'm kind of just shading within the design like this. Okay, so you get that lighting on those rocks, the objects. So we have lighting in terms of areas. Here's lighting within the grass, and here's lighting within, you know, not each rock, you know, because that's going to be a little bit crazy. Like in here, these smaller rocks in here, I'll just cover them, you know, them all up. But the larger portions like that, you know, you can keep, you know, certain areas of them kind of illuminated, and that creates your you know, your illusion of light kind of falling on them. Everything is looking a little bit bright right now. I mean, that can look cool, you know, but mine will be, it'll be a little bit more subdued and unified, I think. And, you know, kind of a little bit more muted and somber than kind of like happy and cheerful, you know, kind of like me. So we want kind of, yeah, you know, nice and somber and moody. I'm almost forgetting about these foreground elements. I guess the foreground, it's like, you know, my the emphasis in here is probably this little area in here. So it's kind of what I'm find myself looking at, but and then I coming down here, it's like an afterthought in terms of the foreground. But you can see this little area lighting right in here that are I'm still kind of retaining, you know, some lightness of it. I mean, we could, you know, I mean, this all could be like really dark in here too, and it'll kind of frame off the scene. So that's just another, you know, kind of approach to it. You don't have to do everything the same, you know, from scene to scene or within the scene either. You can, you know, kind of change your strategies. Like maybe I should make these rocks around here, you know, quite a bit darker, and that will kind of direct the viewer's eye towards the lighting a little bit more. You know, it's like putting a vignette around the whole thing and making it a little bit darker on there. It kind of focuses everything in there a little bit more of where you want the viewer's eye to look, you know, like much more like staging, you know, stage lighting or something like that. If this was like a set on a stage, you know, you want your viewers to watch, you know, look at certain areas within there, not looking off, you know, towards the edge of the stage or something like that. So that's why they, you know, they have their spotlights, you know, wherever you want them to be, or, you know, things like that going on. Okay, I'm spending a lot more time with these alcohol inks than I thought I would, but, you know, I'm going to say that they're real fast on this big, huge piece here, so working out pretty good. Here's a little bit more of a olive, kind of a neutral temperature olive green. And I just grabbed the color just because I had it. You know, if I didn't have it, I'm, you know, well, naturally I wouldn't have grabbed it, but you can just kind of look and see what colors you have and just kind of design your, a lot of the color scheme around that. Okay, so when I went to dark, let's go back to a little bit light and let's blend it in. So Boy, that is really shiny. Like that. All right. Let's grab a few more blue tones. Let's go to this. It's strange thinking of the colored pencils being kind of like an accent medium, but I have a feeling that's what it's going to be here. Okay, so here's some other tones of blue, and there's my gray right there. If the gray is dark enough, I don't know if it will be. Let me see. Dark enough to be kind of a shadow gray. Let's test it out. I mean, it's certainly this gray right here certainly relates to the the London fog here, I think. So maybe this will just be a darker version of it to lay down on here. Granny Smith apples to help with nausea. That's interesting. Ginger chews. That's interesting. I've never heard a lot of these kind of remedies here. It's like homeopathic remedies for motion sickness. Is it seasickness and specifically there's motion sickness? You like the color of the water, huh, Linda? Yeah, I like how it came along. I don't know if I've used these combinations here before for that water, but it turned out pretty good. I'm just going to try not to destroy it right now with these pens. I'm just joking. I'm going to use these darker pens in like the deepest of shadow areas, and then I'm going to try to blend them out again. I tried to add the gray, but it didn't do as well as I wanted to. Blue next for me. Try to brighten it up or something like that, but maybe not over the vast area. Put your brighter tones in the shadow areas. That's what this one, I did with this one, and that really helped it out. But do you guys see what's happening down here? Do you see that kind of brownish tone? So I'm reading up Linda's comment up there, but do you see that kind of beigeish tone in there? That's what I was just teaching Annie here too, in terms of base layer colors. But that base layer color in there is really helping this water scheme out quite a bit, even though that warmish, very subtle tinge in there, I mean, you can see it, for sure. It's not like, this is like way too dark. It's kind of key to, this, I don't know, whatever the spirit is, I guess, in that water area like that. Okay, this is okay, that's like way light. Don't I have something kind of in between here? Let's see. I might have already used this. I don't know if I use this color because I can see it right there after it's been applied. See, this is a little bit of brighter tone. It's a little bit darker, but mostly it's brighter, so I'm keeping my brighter tone right here in the shadow areas just to see if I like it, because it's not a huge jump in brightness by adding this in here, okay? Okay. All right. Let me see if I can add a little of this. This is a little bit too extreme, but let's see here. I'm just going to add a little touch of it right here. So it's kind of like adding something down. I can do this here because I have a thick layer of alcohol ink already kind of built up in there. So this isn't like absorbing into the paper as much. And then what I'll do is I'll go back in and blend that out. So it's just kind of putting that little dab of that darker, brighter blue back into solution, and then I'm able to blend it out a little bit. Kind of do it quickly if it's on like a paper like this, because I can feel that it is taking a little bit of coaxing like that to put back into solution. So I think if I let that sit for like an hour, I don't know if it would, blend out as easy for me. But right now it's no problem. Just go over it a little bit and then blend it out. So kind of in my deeper little shadow areas, like right back in here, here, and here, I've added a little bit of this, this darker blue like that. See, I don't know if you can see. I think you could see it on the camera right here, right in here and here, right and back in there. There was a little bit right here, I think. So just, I don't know. It's just like tweaking things a little bit more. And sometimes when you make things a little bit darker, wherever they might be in your shadow areas, by contrast, it makes your lighter areas, one step lighter looking, okay? I don't know if you make, if I make this area up here dark, it'll make this area look lighter, but if you kind of make, within a certain range, distance range, that contrast comes into play. Reserve everything. Okay, let's see. We should have a Wayne scale in everyone's room. Hello, Crystal. I do not often try new things at a buffet. Next time, Crystal. Next time you go to a buffet, just one time. Don't eat anything that you've eaten before. I know. After you start, maybe the experimentation kind of happened before. I tend to go with favorites now. But I usually try one, I don't know, some new things. I used to try to do that all the time. I'd go to like a grocery store or something like that, and I would try to make a point to try one new thing. Or I'd pick up one new thing with every visit. I don't know if I do that quite anymore. It's really hard to do that at restaurants, but I was doing that for a while too. I was getting something different, just, for the sake of, I don't know, whatever. Keeping an open mind in terms of foods and stuff like that. I don't do that quite as much anymore, and especially if you don't go to the place very often, then you're getting your favorite thing. But if you go to some place or whatever, it's a good idea to try it. It keeps your mind nimble, and I think it applies to the scenes like this. It keeps your mind open in terms of kind of approaching, different colors or something like that, or different media. It's just kind of a good idea to try that out once in a while. They called it in school, if you did something, well, that came out pretty well on a project or something like that. And if you did that too much afterwards, other students or the teacher, might make a comment. Hey, they'd say, "Hey, you're using that color right there as a crutch." It's like you've gone back to it too much, maybe because of how it worked out, or possibly due to positive feedback or something like that. And it's good to incorporate in there. Then you have it in your kind of your repertoire, But if you're not kind of experimenting around, especially in an academic setting, where you're learning, that wouldn't be good. And that goes for me, as well. I try to keep things kind of like wide open in terms of, or wider open in terms of things like media, especially these days. I don't know. I'm always being surprised at something that kind of works out that I wouldn't have thought would work out. Like I tried this glitter paper recently, and I thought it was way too textural. It felt like I was working on like, 100 grit sandpaper or something like that. But I don't know. I was able to do something on there that I wouldn't have tried. I don't think, like maybe 3 years ago. But these holographic papers and printable vinyls and stuff like that really have opened my eyes in terms of what was what's possible. And like this one right here, I've never used so many alcohol inks in my life, I don't think. On one scene, at least. Okay, here's violet right here. I'm going to try something like this. I'm going to try to put this... You know, violet's kind of an interesting combination with greens, and I'm just going to try to use some of this in my shadow areas of these rocks. Just as like a little kind of complementary color to all of these oranges that are going to be in there. You know, that orange and violet, you know, color scheme or combination that people use on things. Okay, I don't know if you can even see it. Let's see if you can see something down here. Can you see the difference between some of these rocks right here, like this one, or these ones over here? I might need to blend this one in a little bit. Alright, so there's the little purplish tinge on those rocks in there. Okay, I think that'll complement those orangish trees in there really well. Okay, did I forget about these ones down here again? Alright, purple. Turkey or salmon, no frog legs. Frog legs tomorrow, Jeannie. Frog legs and you know, snails or something like that for your dinner or dessert. Frogging? You went frogging up there in Washington? I've tried frog legs once. And I agreed. It tastes like the chicken wings or something like that to me, especially if they're fried. But yeah, I only had it the one time. But after, I don't know what it was, maybe that third leg or something like that. And there's Froggy Fresh. Speaking of frog legs, doing well. Thanks, Froggy Fresh. This is not glossy paper. It's the semi-gloss. It looks glossy though, huh? It's starting to look glossy because of all the alcohol inks on there. But see how glossy the trees are? But I didn't use like alcohol up here, so this is like the semi-gloss area right here. But it's really starting to, those alcohol inks are really starting to build up. That's why I was wondering about, you know, if I'm going to use colored pencils on here, should I do those before the alcohol inks? After one layer of alcohol inks, I don't think it would have been a problem to use colored pencils on here, but I think it might be a little bit too glossy and maybe non-porous now to use colored pencils. But in some of these areas where I haven't, you know, given it a big thick slathering of, you know, inks, I think I could use some colored pencils. And I like the idea of colored pencils on here. Maybe I'll use some of those right now. I like the idea of colored pencils on a lot of these areas on my scenes because they give a really, you know, soft and, you know, super, you know, colored pencils have that soft, you know, kind of real, you know, it's a real mellow looking medium. And I like that in combination with, your denser, richer areas. So it creates kind of a textural change in the piece. So that being said, let me try some of my brown, greens and browns on here. And it's the same type of thing. Now going on here with like a super light colored pencils, that's not going to do anything. So I'll see what I can do with something like this, and we'll see if it does like anything at all in here. I don't know if it will. Okay, definitely over the top of the alkyl inks, nothing. Okay, but like in these areas that I didn't color in too much, I could see this tone in here being applied. Some areas, like I said, it's just too saturated with alcohol ink. Okay. Oh, this is interesting here. So you know how I added like, I don't know, like 4 layers of alcohol ink over the top of this area? I just went with this colored pencil right down here, and I think it removed off maybe like the top layer of that alcohol ink, where that alcohol ink's just laying on top of another alcohol ink. I thought they were physically mixing, but I just scraped off some of it because it's getting lighter on there, so that's kind of interesting. I'll see if I can get any variation. Okay, now see, in some of these areas of the trees where it's kind of light and I only put like 1 or 2 layers of alcohol ink, I can apply this. This is not going to be good YouTube streaming content right here, but because it's really, really subtle. I don't know if you can see it happening at all. But in these areas, I can add some of this. So where I'm adding it is in this darker area right here. And see, this area right here is a little bit darker on the tree, so I can reiterate my shadows a little bit more in just a very specific area, that you can't really do as easily with a big chisel tip, pen, or like a wadded up, paper towel like that. But I can get in like this darker area right here. I can just run that right along there, and it's just a darker version of that shadow. And again, you get a little bit more textural with that. See this area right in here? So I wanted to create some difference between that darker tree in the background and this foreground tree, but I don't want to get this too dark. But, I can come into it with this, which is kind of a lighter, softer application of media. Okay, now see this tree right here. This one right here is a little bit lighter right here. But see this background tree? I can come into it with this. And you can really control how much of this you lay down here. So we created a little bit of a separation between this tree and this tree. And I guess one of the other things too is you can really work around these aspen trees too. Like this. With the colored pencils. So use your media for, whatever colors or textures that you want to go for, but, use them for their strengths, so this is something that's very, specific in terms of the placement of it. So you can get into these really detailed areas like this. If the piece calls for it or the image calls for it. And again, I'm doing this because it's also on, this is a big 11 by 17, so I'm spending a lot more time with, little nuanced little areas, I wouldn't be doing that on a, a quarter-page card or something like that. I wouldn't be spending quite as much time with that. All right. Okay, so see these areas right in here, just that plain white. I might want to get a little bit of tone in there. I guess this is applying over the top of some of these alcohol inks. I'm just being a little bit more aggressive with it here. I guess it does apply on there a little bit more than I thought. I was going a little bit light at first, but if I kind of really work it into that, it seems to be applying a little bit at least, where it didn't seem to be applying at all before. Okay, here's a little bit of a darker one. Okay, now here's, I don't know, was Annie still on here? Annie and I were talking about, you know, the colored pencils, and we were saying, hey, some of these are softer. Some colored pencils are softer than other ones within the same set, you know, and that's the case. This one's a softer pencil than this one. This one's a raw umber. This one's dark brown. Okay, so this one seems softer, so it's applying easier on this. All right, those trees look better, I think, with the colored pencils. It's kind of subtle, but it took care of a lot of the, you know, some of those. Let's see, I need some color in there, don't I? Yeah, it's like interesting. So there's three mediums on the trees. We have dye-based inks, alcohol inks, and colored pencil. Maybe one of them, maybe the dye-based inks weren't needed. I don't know. What is going on out there, Frankenfurst? Someone got murdered. My gosh. That is nuts. Let's see. Let's see. I didn't go frogging. Candy's. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you should go, Genie. All right. Go on one of those side, one of those optional side tours, Genie. Alaskan frogging. All right, here's a little bit of deeper green. Let's not do that. Did I use this one already? Burnt umber? I don't think I did. I used raw umber, right? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, here's the raw umber. There is a lot of space to cover on 11 by 17, I'm finding. Not that I didn't know that, but I just don't do scenes this big too often, so. Instead, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pretty big trees in here. If I notice anything, it's like I start applying something kind of, very methodical. And it's like, okay, by the third thing, I'm just doing this, It still needs some sort of focal point in here. I haven't decided what I want to add in there. If I'm going to add in anything like a creature, like a little deer or something. And maybe instead of it being kind of a focal point, I might do something where it's like, I don't know, just peering out from behind a tree or something of that sort. And subtle. Or I don't know, it could be birds up here too. I'm not sure. All right, let's see. Let's use some of this umber on my rocks too. Okay. Okay, so there's some of that burnt umber. That was one of those colors that's pretty standard in beginning painting classes. You always have to have your burnt umber. It was always burnt umber, different. I don't know, different hues, but burnt umber was always one of them. Sepia, like a cobalt blue or something like that. But it was always those umbers or something like that that we were always kind of laying down kind of a base coat with. All right. It's getting there. It's going very, it's subtle. Okay, so I'm already on black, which I didn't think I would get to. This is a lot further along than I thought I would. I'm not gonna do the paint pens on this tonight, but I don't know. I thought I would get like into the additional base layer colors and maybe some of the coloring, but that alcohol work went so fast. Kind of expedited the entire process, although there's still quite a bit of it here. Maybe Jeannie's going frogging, catch and release though. Frogs and slugs are cute. The first time I ever saw those gigantic like banana sized slugs was in like southern Washington at an around the Willapa Bay area, if anyone knows where that is. That lives in Washington. But my uncle lived out there, and he was in the oyster farming business. And we went and stayed with them, and that was the first time I saw those like gigantic Pacific Northwest style of slugs. All right, so this is black, and again, just kind of adding to these shaded areas like this. It's subtle at this point in time because I'm just adding kind of a gray layer over the top of an already darker area or object that I've colored. So it's not a huge, although it's a dark color, I'm not adding it over an image that's still kind of white. It's, an image that's already whatever, 70% gray or 80%, I don't know, maybe 85%, grayscale or something like that. Okay, luckily this black here is reasonably soft because I'm not having really a problem applying this on here. Or I don't know, maybe I've laid down like some colored pencils on here now over the top of some of the slippery, sealed off alcohol ink. So maybe these colored pencils are grabbing onto some of that, colored pencil that I just laid down on there. So it's like established a little bit more of a kind of a textural foundation again over the top of the alcohol inks. I'm not sure what's going on, but unless this one's just so much softer that it's, not having a hard time applying at all. But this seems to be going on here without too much of a issue. I don't know how dark it can get, but So I've been hitting kind of the right side of most of these tree trunks, you know, to create a little bit of a deeper shadow area at the base of them, okay? So again, so we've moved away from that really, you know, super lime greenish tinge. But again, having that kind of those base layer colors underneath there, it makes those shadow areas much richer as a result, okay? Like having those brighter tones in there. Yeah, you know, some of those brighter tones showing through here and there where I don't cover it up. But they're more as, you know, used as accents like that. And so you get these like tones like this kind of really, you know, nice and bright and shiny like that. Hello, Jen, if I didn't say that. Yeah, the colored pencils are working real well, Annie. Let's see. Okay, I'm working on this upside down so much. I gotta keep track of where my lighting is coming from. Okay, so on this side of the tree out here, we'll go a little bit darker. So even if you see proportionately, okay, so or whatever relationship, you know, between this little bit of, like, say, and it's not applying that dark on here because it's over the top of this, but let's say I go 2% a little bit darker on the shaded side of the tree. Okay, so you're saying, okay, we've extended the visual range out by 2%, right? Here's darks, here's lights over here, okay? If you go 2% this way, again, by contrast, that seems lighter this way. So it's not, you're not really making things lighter at this way, but you know, you can double the effect of you know, these types of applications because of that visual contrast that's being coming into play here. So if you just make things a little bit darker right here, again, that area just seems a little bit lighter by contrast without that glare there like that. Okay, so again, you know, so again, those, you know, different foundation layers of the, you know, the skin tone inks, I think work pretty good in there. I don't, you know, I didn't want it just straight skin tone or something like that, but again, those are used as kind of like base layers for these other colors. But look at that warm glow that those trees are giving off. All right, I think, my gosh, I think I'm almost done here with this portion of it. We're gonna have to see if we can incorporate in with that background the paint pen applications here and have it look nice and integrated. It's going to be introducing an entire new textural quality into the scene and lighting and everything like that, and that's where hopefully the excitement is going to take place. I think this is looking pretty good right now, but from a textural standpoint, I think those other colors will look really nice in this one. Okay, so we have this tree right here, and this is a little bit lighter on this trunk. I'm going to make this side a little bit darker like this, again, for its, you know, for that eventual contrast, kind of, whatever, interplay between this and that fall foliage tree. Like that. Okay, I think this rock right here should get a little bit darker too, because I don't want too much light on the outside like that, especially when it's coming from over here. So let's tone this in out a little bit like this. So see, like this on this rock right here, I made it darker right over here, and it's getting a little bit lighter over here, so we're transitioning that value scheme, okay? as opposed to flattening this all out with a uniform shade like that. Okay, so this colored pencil works really well for that, because I can really control it. All right. Colored pencils, additional dye-based inks, alcohol inks. Look at this. It's even like, it sticks to me because, you know, that alcohol stickiness. And additional shadow work in here. Let's make this area in here a little bit darker too. I usually like to keep my applications of media kind of going in the direction of the textures. So these trees are, you know, vertical. So I'm making more of these vertical types of applications of media. And my rocks down here, you know, they're more rounded. So I'm kind of, you know, just going like this. I'm doing a little bit of tone like this. I'm not keeping it too, you know, I'm not doing things that, you know, that are too linear like this. I'm doing like, you know, coming like this on the rocks. I'm doing more of a soft application of it. I'm kind of doing the circular motion just in general like that, or just very light, okay? But then the trees, I'm going more of like a hatchy type of, you know, kind of elongated stroke like this. All right. All right, I think step 2. Textural kind of changes next, in the next whatever stream. Textural changes in terms of the things like paint pens, okay? On my aspen trees, different gold tones, white, and then if I get through that, which I don't think there should be any problem with, the white pigment ink in here, so I'll incorporate, I don't know if it's incorporated, it's kind of like bringing these trees out a little bit more, but where I'll need to incorporate them into the scene from a textural standpoint, and then really popping the color and intensities throughout this piece. We'll need to use that same kind of texture in the grassy areas too, because we do have lighting in there. Okay. And down in here, I don't want to hit this too much because I like my water as is. But since we are going for kind of these different textures, you really have to do kind of bring in some kind of common texture, even if it's just a little subtle, little sparkling, you know, kind of water down here. A little bit of white in some of those lighter, almost white blues will do it, you know. They call it specular light. It's those little reflective types of elements coming off of things. And I mention this all the time, but, you know, we're surrounded by specular light, unless we're, why, even if the only thing that it's on and you're in a dark room or something like this, and you have this video on, like, you know, on your computer keyboard or something like that, you'll see these little reflective little areas of light on here, you know, like in this black barrel, here's this reflection of this light down on here, or on, I don't know, like on my fingernail right there, you know, on a manicured fingernails, or my veins right there. Those are lighter areas right there. They're not like sparkling or anything like that, but, you know, you can use these types of highlighting things on everything. So they're going to be real prominent in the trees, of course, probably with like 2 or 3 layers of different oranges and yellows within here. And then we'll hit some of these in here with some different greens and probably white, and then with white down below here in these areas. And I'll be real careful about not, doing anything too extreme. And then, okay, so we're going to have all these dots everywhere, and it's going to look kind of crazy. And then we'll just mellow it all out and blend it all in with some white pigment ink, just to incorporate everything in. But one of the things I'm going to have to kind of look at right here is if I've kind of achieved the overall kind of lighting scheme that I want. It is kind of it's looking brighter than I thought it would, and I wanted to go with a little bit more of a deeper, darker tone, so I'm going to think about maybe bringing in something up here, or I don't know. I think this is supposed to represent something a little bit too high, so I don't think I want to have any like overhanging limbs like this done in black, although that would be a perfect way to kind of frame things off, but I don't think we would see that up there, so I might have to cap it off with something else, like I don't know, like another gray or something of that sort. So I'll think about that. I don't know, whatever design, consideration before I get to this here. I don't know, I'll probably think about it, what I want to do, like, I don't know, like 2 minutes after I come on next in the next live stream, but I'll try to figure it out. But anyways, a pretty decent foundation in terms of lighting and intensity and shadows in there. So I'm looking forward to the next step in here. I think it'll really bring the scene to life using some of those acrylic elements in here. So yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for logging on wherever you might be. I don't know, Jeannie's still on from the cruise ship. That's a first. Cruise ship, Stampscapes channel viewing. Who'd have thunk it? Do it from the buffet next time, that gourmet buffet, and you can explain to us what you're eating and stuff, and make everyone really start getting hungry watching the stream here, live stream. Stay tuned for part 3, and I think final segment of this scene. All right, I'm going to jump on. I don't know when I'll finish this one off. I'm going to be eager to get to this one, though. I'll need to hide it from myself because I'll want to come on like later on tonight and finish it, but I don't know. I'll probably do it maybe, I don't know, sometime this week. I don't know, maybe tomorrow. It depends on if my son goes over to Open Gym and he's over there for like 2 hours, and I log on while they're gone. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't wait to see these aspen trees in here. I've been doing this all along here. The star of the scenes are going to be the aspen trees, but up until this time, it's like I'm spending like all the time on everything but the aspen trees and that type of foliage in there. So I love adding in all those little things like that, and adding in like a bunch of fallen aspen trees on the rocks and like floating in the water and things like that. So yeah, I can't wait to see that. Anyway, thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Ginger. Thanks, Cynthia. And looking forward to seeing you all, or whoever jumps in there, on the next live stream. If you're not subscribed, and hit the notification bell if you want to jump in on the live version of that, hit those things. And you'll get notified when part 3 is executed. I might have to go with some darker tones in here. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out then. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of evening, wherever you are. floating and hopefully not seasick.